The fun part of this has been going on places like Anderson Cooper and telling the story of Arizona, telling the story of election administration. And one of the good things that has come out of the 2020 election is there are a lot more people that are interested, at least in the process, and excited about the process rather than just the results. And hopefully we've tapped into a bit of that.
Welcome to the Native Edge. I'm Chris James. I'm with my co-host,
Yvette Fielder.
How's it going today, Yvette?
Really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I do want to, a lot of times, we're in Arizona, so we are close to Phoenix. A lot of times, Yvette and I remark about the weather.
Yes.
It's a beautiful 103 today.
Only 103.
Yeah.
It was 112 a couple days ago.
Happy fall, y'all.
I have a maroon shirt on.
Looks good.
So
Yeah,
getting
nice.
ready for fall.
Ready for fall. So, I mean, we do feel a lot of times we do talk about how the climate's changing. We do have a guest coming up soon. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But I do want to mention I'm from Western North Carolina. So, boy, that was quite a mess.
Yes.
All of the South with the.
How are your parents?
My parents are doing well. They are in their 80s, so it's always a little nerve-wracking when there's no electricity or cell service. But they're doing okay. The whole Cherokee Eastern Band of Cherokee Indian Reservation. A little bit of flooding, but not as bad as the Asheville area
Right.
and Waynesville and the surrounding Boone area. Those areas, are pretty much devastated. So I know people are concerned about Western North Carolina. So the NPR and PBS station, the local station, is www.vpm.org. If you want to help folks of Western North Carolina or in that area, go there. There's plenty of resources on how you can support. One cool thing, they helicopter, because all the roads are closed.
They're just gone.
You can't even get food trucks into the area. So they're doing a lot of helicopter stuff. So if you want to help support the helicopter drops, that's going on.
Yeah, get involved.
Get involved. So please look into it. Upcoming Native Edge. We have a whole gamut of great guests coming up. We're going to, usually Native Edge podcast we do every other week. In November for Native American Heritage Month, we're going to do every week.
Nice.
Can you believe that?
It's amazing.
Believe it.
It's a lot of conversations.
It's a lot of conversations. We have HUD, our friend HUD
Oberly.
He's coming up. He's a small business owner. He's a model. He's a 40 under 40 advocate. He's just a great guy. Ralph Lauren model. Very cool. Yeah. Good conversation about all of what he does. Designer. Yeah. Fawn Sharp, who used to be a tribal leader up in Washington. She used to be a National Congress of American Indians. Really great advocate on climate change. We have author. When you write a book, you're an author. We have author and a professor, Jeremy Garcia. He wrote a really good book on indigenous education, so that's coming up. Local, yes. And then we have one of my good friends. Her name is Sherry Black. She she's going to talk to us about foundation work. She's with the Johnson Scholarship Foundation, but she's had a great career in and around Native American organizations and communities, and she's a rock star. So a lot going on for the Native Edge podcast.
We only have rock stars on the show.
We only have rock stars on the show. Yes, you are correct. Every year we put on an event called the Reservation Economic Summit. So I did want everybody to know it is talk a little bit about it.
We're planning. It's coming up March 10 through 13. Is that the right date?
Yes.
2025. We had over 4,500 people last year. We're expected we're going to break 5,000 people this year.
5,000 attendees at Res. So registration is open. If you register now, you get some flash sale. We like sales.
Yes.
Probably has something 99, $7.99.
Early bird.
Early bird.
Early bird, I think.
Early bird.
Yeah.
The Reservation Economic Summit is going to be open soon. It's going to be amazing this year. Again, everything you hear on the podcast, we're going to have live. I think we're actually going to be doing Native Edge podcast live, you and I, on stage, main
wow.
stage in front of
okay.
2,000 people.
Oh,
Did you
nice.
know that?
That'll be great.
Have I not told you that?
Well, you throw me up there, like, Yvette, go do a prayer. Like,
yeah, Yvette, go do the
when?
prayer.
In 2 minutes.
Yeah, right now.
I'm like, awesome.
Yeah, that's so funny how we've known each other now almost a decade, it seems. Well, not quite, but almost a decade. And it was like, Yvette, go do Res TV and go do. So thank you. And Yvette, thank you for
it's
hosting
a lot of
the
fun.
podcast. Yeah, well, you do such a great job.
And now you know.
Now
6
we know.
months in advance.
We also have a couple of Native Edge in-person events coming up. Do you want to talk about those? Lake Tahoe?
Lake Tahoe's coming up. It's right around the corner, the end of October, or the middle of October, excuse me.
Yeah.
So we
Orlando,
have
too?
Orlando will be coming up, the next Native Edge, and the IENTA conference is also
yes,
in
IENTA.
October. So
Yes.
our new tourism program will be participating in the IENTA conference.
Yes. Also, another podcast, so I forgot to tell. We are going to do a tourism podcast with your team.
Yes,
That's-
during Lake Tahoe.
During Lake Tahoe.
Yes.
Awesome. So,
So
we're
we'll
going to
get
learn
to-
all about what your team does and how we can support communities nationwide.
Yes,
Awesome.
all the 5 regions.
This is something funny. One of our listeners, longtime listener, they said I'm pronouncing a word wrong on our show.
No.
Yeah.
Is it author?
It could be.
That's the next one.
We pronounce
Yes, we
words
pronounce
wrong all the
one.
time.
Yeah. So, resignate. How do I say resignate?
Resonate.
Resignate and resonate. So I have been saying resignate. This really resonates.
To resonate. It resonates with
Yeah.
you.
No G.
Okay.
No G.
No G.
Apparently,
Well,
like 10 times our last episode.
you're from North Carolina.
I am so from North Carolina. So that's
Well,
it.
can you imagine? My mother was from North Dakota. My dad
I
was from
can't
South
imagine
Dakota.
that.
Not only did she had a Native American accent, she had the North Dakota thing going on. So
What's that?
she's speaking, aw gee there, Bobby, don't you know, all of that good stuff. And my friends would come over and they're like, what did she say? Was that Indian? And I'm like, no, that was English.
It was North Dakota.
It's well, I think there's a show on Moonshiners that's filmed in Western North Carolina. It's a show on a Discovery Channel. Yeah, but sometimes they'll have to put subtitles underneath some of the, and I sometimes feel like I need subtitles for some of the words I use, but I think people get it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The meaning was there.
Anyway, so that's that.
That's a lot.
That's our
We're
intro.
busy.
We are busy.
We are so busy.
And today we have such a great guest today. This is, I'm going to let our guest just introduce himself, but we have Stephen Richer.
Just like the word.
Stephen Richer, just like it says on my piece of paper.
Yeah, everyone wants to make it harder.
Maricopa County recorder here in Arizona. Stephen, welcome. And introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. Well, I'm a little dismayed to know that your next guest is a model for Ralph Lauren. I'm glad the visual comes out after the audio portion of this because that's tough to compete
Yeah,
with.
it's a
Ralph
tough one.
Lauren. I feel like you're at the top of the game if you're modeling for Ralph Lauren.
It was a great campaign. It was amazing, and he's tall
He's
too.
tall, good-looking young guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what they're looking for with Ralph
You're a
Lauren.
tall, good-looking guy.
There it is. That's what I wanted.
Yeah,
All
you have
right.
the physique,
So as
you
long
have
as
the
we've
physique.
established that, then I'm willing to introduce myself. So my name is Stephen Richer. I was elected as Maricopa County Recorder in all of Maricopa County in 2020. I took office in 2021. Previously, I was an attorney. I was a business person. So some of the small business stuff that you referenced certainly speaks to my heart.
Yeah.
And as Maricopa County Recorder, I have a few responsibilities. Some relate to real estate, but also some relate to voter registration and election administration. And that has put me in the eye of the political storm over the last 4 years, just because here in Arizona and here in Maricopa County, We've been having lots of conversations about the future of democracy, how we run elections, the 2020 election and its aftermath. And because we are a heavily contested county inside a heavily contested state, I think that's brought a lot of eyes to our humble little county. And we get media requests from all over the world, sort of like your listeners, of people who want to know what's going on in Maricopa County because they think it signals sort of the future of American democracy, and obviously the whole world cares about that.
So we're going to really dig into a lot of that. I'm super excited, but let's back up just a little bit and tell us sort of tell us a little bit about your background. You said you were a lawyer. What made you decide to run for this position?
Yeah.
And just like, was it just like, how did you feel the urge to get into politics?
Yeah, well, I lived a lot of places. Grew up in Utah, lived in New Orleans, Chicago twice, Washington, D.C., Philly, Mexico, here in Arizona. Family moved here. And I've always been really involved in every community I've been part of. And that's just something that's given me great joy and great satisfaction. And then I've also been involved in politics. And so I was just very involved in the Arizona community, very involved with the Arizona Republican Party. And then this office was an office that the party had lost to my predecessor, a Democrat, and so they were saying, hey now, Maricopa County is an important county for us to hold. Who's going to be our person? And I got interested in it, did some work in it. It combines my 3 areas of interest background, combines politics with law in that we need to follow the law, and then management.
Yeah.
I mentioned I'm a business person, and at the end of the day, it's an office of about 150 full-time employees, and we try to make the operation run as well as possible. And I thought the sort of the cherry on the top was that, hey, we'll do a good job, we'll administer the office, we won't be having to weigh in on sort of heavy topics like abortion or gun control or something like that. So everyone should like me, right?
Yeah.
And then
Easy peasy.
little did I know
like,
that
I have
this
to
would
keep up with
become
those
sort of
conversations.
the hot potato of the political world. And but it's been a privilege. But that's how I decided to get in. I ran and won in 2020, and the rest is history.
And tell us a little bit, just for those, like we have listeners all over the world, United States, give us an idea of the size of Maricopa County.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's hard for people
Right.
to really see, like,
Yeah, they don't realize
is?
almost
How-
5 million people
Right,
in the
exactly.
county.
Exactly.
yeah.
So I think and part of the reason lots of people are talking about Maricopa County is indeed because of its size and its diversity. Almost 5 million people. We're the 4th largest county in the United States by population, but we're actually the 2nd largest voting jurisdiction in the United States with about 2.6 million registered voters behind only Los Angeles County. But of the top 10 largest voting jurisdictions in the United States, we're the only one that is highly politically competitive because we have roughly 1/3 Republicans, 1/3 Democrats, and 1/3 independents. And then we have, I think, about 21 cities and towns inside of Maricopa County. We have 23 recognized tribes inside of Arizona, most of which touch in Maricopa County. The seat of Maricopa County is Phoenix, but we have cities that you've maybe heard of, such as Scottsdale, Tempe, Glendale, Gilbert, here in Mesa, where we're sitting right now. And so Maricopa County encompasses a lot and makes up about 62% of the population of Arizona. So when people are pointing to Arizona as one of the states to be talking about in this upcoming election, well, what factors in there? Really, Maricopa County.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely a hot area. Arizona as a whole is a big focus.
In both senses of the word,
yeah,
as you
on
mentioned.
just like
We just had
everything.
a stinking 117 degree day in September, which, going to the point about weather, that was our hottest ever September day. Was 117 just this past weekend. So yeah, we're hot in all senses of the
Yeah,
word.
kids are going to
Yeah.
be wearing shorts trick or treating.
Yeah.
Like the trick or treating, where's the plastic?
even put on the
Remember, like, when we were growing
costume,
up, we
it's
had
too
those
hot,
plastic
you know?
masks.
I know, because a lot of
The
those
rubber band.
costumes, like you're inside of a mask, and it's
Yeah.
like if it's 100 degrees outside, it's going to
Yeah.
be hot.
It's like the days of like having to put a coat on, at least in Arizona, it's gone. I guess up in Flagstaff, though, you probably may need a coat over your costume.
Maybe. Well,
I'm just thinking of that Iron Man suit that a lot of kids are going to be wearing. Like that seems like it's
pretty
not the
intense.
greatest
Yes.
warm weather outfit.
I love Halloween.
fourth largest county, though.
Fourth largest county. Yeah, Los Angeles County, Cook County, Harris County. So Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles areas. But we know, though maybe some of your listeners don't know, that Maricopa County is also one of the fastest growing counties consistently, and lots of people are moving to Phoenix. They like our economy, they like our sunshine, they usually like our weather, at least during the winter they like our weather, and they like that we have a lot going on and that we're a city that I feel our best days are still ahead of us. I think that some American cities look to the past. Like I mentioned, I lived in New Orleans, and I think that's a city that sort of looks to the glory days of yore rather than Phoenix, which is saying, we're still a teenager that's really growing into our size.
Yeah. And so, of course, now 2020, with the election, there was some controversy here. Folks were actually throwing out conspiracy theories and saying, there was some issues with voting.
It was rigged. Things were thrown away. And you were very transparent.
You were the guy.
Yeah, so had to step in and had to answer a lot of questions. And really the first 2 years of my time in office were about getting people answers to their questions, digging in, showing people the process, inviting people in to see the election equipment, to see election personnel, putting out videos, putting out articles, doing whatever we could to reassure voters of the sanctity of this process. And at first it was very rewarding, and it was very, I was excited to do it. But then after a little while, you learn that some of these people aren't terribly interested in just getting answers to their questions, where they're just looking for theories to support what they want to believe is true. And that's been a frustration of mine. And it's broader than election administration. Is just sort of like, can we even have a shared set of facts as a country anymore? And that's true of public health. That's true of election administration. I'm sure that's true of elements of the economy as well. And so that's really sad to me, is just that we can't get everyone to agree whether the sky is blue. And how are we supposed to have productive political conversations if we can't start somewhere?
And, when the attacks started really happening, you stood the ground. I mean, because you went from being an elected official where everybody's like loving you to all of a sudden a group, not everybody, but then they're all yelling at you and saying you're wrong. As a leader, how did you sort of manage that in your head, and how to even switch to that sort of, keeping to your values and what you knew was right compared to what folks were saying?
Yeah. It was sad because it was a lot of the people that I considered friends, or at least supporters, because it was mostly coming from within my party, the Republican Party, that people who were alleging for one reason or another that the 2020 election was stolen. And I looked at this about as much as a human being can, and I concluded definitively that the 2020 election was not stolen in Arizona or in any other state. And so I knew that to be true. And I suppose the stubbornness of me and the respect for facts part of me just wouldn't let go of that. And then I always thought of politics as something that would be fun, would be of hopefully great significance and a great meaning, but it was always something that I knew I could walk away from. But what I couldn't walk away from was I wouldn't be comfortable with myself. My wife wouldn't be comfortable with me if I had told some whoppers, some big lies on some of these topics. And there were some lines in the sand that, politics, there's a decent amount of sort of, blurring the truth a little bit or embellishing a bit. But I thought that this was just too big and too important for our country to cater to some of the desires of some members of my political party.
And you had a responsibility too, because I mean you were the elected official, but you were also a government official, you had to follow the rules.
Well, I remember watching the news, and you invited people in, and I don't remember, it was a short documentary I watched during this time. And, you travel and people's, oh, you're from Arizona. Oh, you guys, this happened. Or I said, that did not happen.
Yeah.
They proved that it didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah. And then that gets to the point where I'm sure the people that you interact with outside of Arizona are good people who are interested in knowing the truth. But these days you hear so much that it's harder and harder to distill truth from fiction. And that really worries me. But to your point, I was an elected official who not only represented myself, but represented the 150 people in my office. And then I had to remind myself, once you're elected, you represent everyone in Maricopa County, not just the people who voted for you, but all nearly 5 million residents of Maricopa County. And so as much as some members of my political party would have liked for me to give credence to their allegations about the 2020 election, I owed a duty to every single Maricopa County resident, and I thought that duty meant that I had to tell the truth about this very significant thing. Not just, maybe it would have been more forgivable if it was something small, but was the 2020 election stolen that's a big deal.
Right. Yeah.
Time Magazine recently profiled you as a democracy defender, which is a cool title.
Cool title. Yeah. Put that on the LinkedIn profile.
Be a democracy defender. You've been interviewed by all these major outlets, so thank you for doing our outlet, the Native Edge podcast. How have you adjusted to become that public figure? Because I know sometimes that's a difficult transition.
Yeah. And I've had my low moments.
Yeah.
It's hard when some national news outlets are teeing off on you or saying certain things, and I probably let it affect me more than I should at times and get into it online and whatnot. But, you surround yourself with people that you care about and listen to them. And before I ran from office, I got some good words of wisdom from the Gilbert mayor. Gilbert's a town in the southeast part of Maricopa County. And she told me, never accept criticism from somebody you wouldn't go to for advice. So if there are a bunch of yahoos on the internet that never in a million years would you ask them for advice on how to manage your finances, how to handle your family, how to run your office, then why would you care if they're saying critical things? And I thought that was good advice. I try to remind myself of it regularly. It's easier said than done because we're all human beings, and there's probably something wrong with you if you enjoy being disliked. That's probably a mental quirk that doesn't lead to very many healthy sort of social outcomes. So it does affect me at times. As for the interviews, part of the fun part of this has been going on places like Anderson Cooper and telling the story of Arizona, telling the story of election administration. And one of the good things that has come out of the 2020 election is there are a lot more people that are interested, at least in the process, and excited about the process rather than just the results. And hopefully we've tapped into a bit of that.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were speaking about mentors, a lot of or not mentors, but people you go to for advice. Yvette and I talk a lot about that, and in a lot of our circles as well. You have to surround yourself with people that you trust. And I think if you're a business owner or if you're an elected official, having those networks are so important. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, having those, I call them touchstones.
Yeah.
Because you can get so in your own mind and so in your own bubble that you lose perspective. So people whose opinion you value, and say occasionally to them, hey, have I gone off the rails here? Have I gone crazy? Help me out here. And then you have to have the discipline to regularly ask them, and also to accept if they say, yeah, I think on this one you overreacted a little bit. Or I think on this one you got a little more emotional than you should have. Or I think on this one, actually there is some gray area or something like that. And so that's how I've tried to balance that, because it's hard when you're in a position like mine to not just see the world as this is 100% clear, and anyone who's saying otherwise is like, I'm on a seek and destroy type mission.
Yeah. So moving forward, What do you see? We have another. I've read recently we have another election coming up. I don't know.
I heard that.
Maybe a TV commercial or two that talks about some of these
I
people.
think there's a few national elections anyway.
Are you Arizona sports fans?
We are, yeah.
Okay, so
absolutely.
I just watching Diamondbacks games when they were still playing, which is of course not now.
Yeah.
Just the number of political commercials
Yeah.
here in Arizona.
yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So, people are a little nervous, right?
Right.
They're thinking about, we have, why should people trust the system now?
Yeah. Well, I'm not asking you to trust the system just because I'm a decent guy or something like that. And so we always say, ask your questions. Contact my office. If you see something on the internet, that's okay.
Yeah.
If you have questions about it, you don't work in this field every single day. It's reasonable for you to not know every little thing that's going on, but give us a chance. Call or email my office. We respond very quickly. So just recorder.maricopa.gov, and you can find lots of information. But I would say a few broad strokes. One, this system is bipartisan. It's not just Republicans. It's not just Democrats running the process. But state law requires that it be Republicans, Democrats, independents working together to administer it. Two, it's transparent. You can go online and you can watch all the processes on our website. You can come into our facility and watch. You can volunteer as an observer for one of the political parties, or you can come work the process and actually get paid by Maricopa County to be a worker. And then lastly, I would say it's tested and it's audited and it's documented. So for instance, with tabulation machines, the Scantron machines that read your ovals, we don't just turn them on and say, let's hope for the best. Those are tested both before and after. The political parties do a hand count audit of the machines afterwards. And so those are some broad strokes that are true not just in Maricopa County, but across Arizona and really across the United States that I hope people keep in mind when they're thinking about election results coming down. And some people will be happy. Let's be honest, some people will be happy on the night of November 5th, and some people will be sad. But I hope everyone keeps those broad strokes in mind.
Yeah.
What do you think? This is a pretty simple question. What do you think is important for folks to vote?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not simple. I mean, because we go back and forth.
Why get involved?
Why
right?
get involved?
Why should
vote?
anybody
because
care
my
to get
one
involved?
Vote, why does it matter?
You hear that a lot.
You hear it all the time.
I think that there are lots of ways to get involved, and I'm not going to say that voting is the only way, but it is certainly representative of civic engagement. And I think civic engagement and the representative process has led to some of the best governments in the world that have had a tension in them, a tug of war in them that have kept them such that they broadly keep us in a healthy place as a society, such that they broadly protect our freedoms, that they broadly take into account freedom versus equality, that they broadly allow people to flourish. And I think one of the reasons I'm so defensive about our form of government and our process is because I think the American form of government has led to great flourishing for many, many people, and countries that have followed similar paths have similarly succeeded. So I like going to Latin America and studying Latin America, and you can look at next door neighbors like Panama versus Honduras, where Panama has now put in place since Noriega, a pretty stable democratic form of government that enforces the rule of law. And they've just blossomed. It's not perfect, but they've blossomed over the last 20 years. And that means for individuals that their lives are better and that they have more opportunities. They can launch their next business. They can spend more time with their family. And so that's at the macro level, that's why I care. And then at the micro level, I would say get involved, because actually most studies show that if you're civically engaged and involved in your community, you're a healthier human being. And hopefully it bears fruits for you too as well, from a business perspective or from a social perspective, which I know are things that your organization cares about and facilitates as well.
We know that there's some deadlines coming up.
Deadlines coming up.
Yeah,
Great time to be doing this.
vote.gov. If you're national, you can go to vote.gov, and that'll direct you where you can register to vote around the United States. And then specifically here in Arizona, what's the...
Yeah, so you have to be registered to vote.
Okay.
And that's true of anyone in the United States. You can't just write down on a piece of paper, hey, I support this candidate, and then just drop it off in a Dropbox or something like that. You have to be registered, and it differs from state to state. Different states have different voter registration laws. In Arizona, you have to be registered 29 days before the election. So that is Monday, October 7th. You must be registered Monday, October 7th, if you want to participate in the general election. And you can do that really easily by going to servicearizona.com. That's through the Motor Vehicle Division. And if you have a driver's license, then the process is even easier, and you can register really quickly. And that way, you're ready to rock. And then you can choose whether you want to vote by mail, if you want to vote in person early, or if you want to vote in person on election day.
I think that's terrific for our listeners. So please go out to make sure you're registered, and also just check to, my son is in North Carolina. So, making sure that you're registered where you're living is very important. So even for a lot of our audiences that are in college too, I think you can even register in that local area.
You can, or you can stay registered. So for instance, if you're an Arizona kid who goes away to Colorado for university, if you consider Arizona your home and your permanent residence, and you can remain registered in Arizona, but just don't register in two places, and certainly don't vote in two places, because then after the election, people share lists, and then it would get referred to prosecutors, and a quick way to ruin your college experience would be having the Attorney General of a state show up.
Yeah, absolutely. That would not be fun.
No. It'll follow you when you want to get into politics in 20 years.
You get one vote.
Did that.
You get one vote.
One vote. So you are pursuing your PhD?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And
how do you have time for all this?
I love education. I spent too much time in school, but it's something that's both important to me, and I value it. And so I went to the University of Chicago for a master's and for law school, and now I am finishing my PhD slowly, just one class a semester at our local Arizona State University. So
got the maroon on.
Forks up. Still working on that a little bit.
Look at that. You can do it.
But now part of the ASU community, and it's great because ASU is just such a behemoth in Arizona, and they're trying to push the boundaries on a lot of different things, and it's an exciting place to be. And I think it's important also for Arizona. I think great cities need great educational institutions, and I think that a lot of what Arizona State is doing is really becoming great. And so when we think about what does the Arizona economy need, and we have all of these semiconductors moving it, well, I think some very large number of engineering degree students graduate from ASU every single year. And so that's really remarkable. And plus the football team's off to a decent start too. So that doesn't hurt.
And what is that drive? Because a lot of people sometimes, later in life, they decide to go back to school. Like you said, hey, maybe, I got my master's degree. I left college and then I went and got a master's degree later on in life. Did you pursue your master's after sort of mid-career? What was your motivation to do that? And then what do you see next for you once you graduate and then everybody can call you a doctor, which is really cool.
Of course, I'll just come back here and be like, please don't even call me Stephen. Just doctor. And also, somebody call you a doctor and you're not an MD. You should probably look in the mirror and tell them,
it's still cool. It's still cool.
I think that you should never stop learning, and I've just noticed that when left to my own devices, I mostly read fiction. And so one of the reasons why I enrolled to finish my PhD is just I wanted to force myself to read some things and learn some things that maybe I wouldn't gravitate to just casually at night in reading. And then two, I've had the the privilege and the luck to be able to continue to invest in myself. And I know not everyone has the time and has a bunch of different commitments, but it's something that I value, and I've been lucky enough to continue to do. And I hope that it allows me to pursue even more exciting adventures in the future. And I just think that universities, again, are an important part of our society, and so I like being a part of them.
And I think, too, they're more accessible than they were, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50
online.
years ago. I mean, you can now look at, even at a community college level, you can get training. You can go to one of our beautiful state schools that we have here. Both you and I have taken classes at various higher education on the East Coast. I think you did Dartmouth.
I did Dartmouth, did a certificate program there.
I've done some Harvard certificate program, but there's so many opportunities now around education, and it doesn't have to be at that PhD level. It could just be a certification class.
Look, I'm an elected official in Maricopa County, so I'm honor bound to say that the Maricopa County Community College District now offers a bachelor's degree.
They do.
All community colleges do that. I think that was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago that they started offering that. And that's a really nice thing for a lot of people, because, as the cost of college continues to explode at some of the 4-year traditional universities, the community college looks very affordable by comparison.
And my kids are, 2 of them are still in high school. They're seniors this year. Can you believe that?
I can't believe it.
Babies.
Twins,
So,
yeah.
they're twins.
What are they? I guess they're right
Highland,
now. Are they
Highland High?
Okay, and they're probably thinking right now, sort of what's next.
Look at what's next. But one of the opportunities that they have had was they can do dual enrollment.
Yep.
And so they could get college credit for going to high school. My son loves. He wants to be an engineer, so he's looking at school. But one of the classes he took, that he just loves cars, and he got into the auto course, auto mechanics. Loves learning about all of that
It's
stuff.
all computerized.
But also, just even learning how to do an oil change and how the car even works. And but for me,
Do you know how to do an oil change?
I do not. I do know how to do.
You
an
do?
oil change.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know how to do that.
Well, I probably know enough that it would be a big mess.
Okay.
And so I'd have to call my son, who's 17, and be like, "Hey,
If you get a flat tire, do you change it yourself?
I would totally change it.
I changed a flat tire.
You guys are way handier
Remember
than
the
I am.
flat tire?
batteries.
Were you on the trip to New Orleans, Louisiana, with the flat tire experience?
Yes,
You changed the tire, right?
I did.
Yeah.
For one of
No,
the
I didn't.
events?
One of the events
We
we were
thought-
driving. This was years ago.
It was a 100-year sleet snowstorm type thing in
Storm.
Louisiana that they
Yeah.
don't have, kind of
During
like our
COVID.
100-year floods that we used to have
Going to
during COVID.
we were
going
to
to
Coushatta
Coushatta Tribe.
to do some event and some technical assistance, and then had a flat.
And I heard it's a weird sound. And we were going to stop at the local next
Started to hear
town, like Walmart, to pick up something. And they wanted to get the cake with the baby in it or whatever.
Yeah, the king cake. Yeah, you were.
That was a priority. So-
To be clear, this is a plastic baby. I don't want any of your listeners to
Correct.
go down the
A
wrong
little
route on
tiny
this.
plastic baby hidden in the
Yes,
cake.
and if you get it, then that's good.
Yes.
Even though it maybe hurts your teeth.
Right.
Yeah.
So
you're going to get the king cake.
we pulled off the highway to get the king cake.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we look and we're like, oh no, we have a flat. No wonder we heard the banging and knocking. And so we did call the dealer.
Well, you
we
only
were
had,
in a
but
car rental
the
and they
reason you
came.
had to call because it was like you didn't have a spare or something, right? There was something weird about it. But
There
you
was
would
something
have
going
done it.
on.
You
There
would have
was-
done it yourself.
Well, and there was a few of us.
There
And
was like a
it
whole
was
team.
cold out.
Well, so
It was cold
you,
out.
like going home right after this, if you went right home with us and you got a flat, you would change it?
I have had to change a tire before on my way to San Diego, flat blowout near Gila Bend.
Yeah.
And it was 118 outside.
Ooh,
and I had
that's
my
high.
2 youngest with me at the time, and my one daughter was 16. And people wouldn't stop. You know what I mean? So I was like, we're going to put this thing on and I think have to turn around and go back to Gila Bend because there's nothing ahead of us. And they were so tight that I had to stand on the thing and hold my daughter and kind of bounce up and down for the lug nut to break through. And then finally, I got the donut on, was, drenched in sweat.
You
Finally,
probably have to explain
Arizona
what the donut
Highway
is.
Department.
What is a donut?
The tire, the donut.
Is that the spare tire?
Yeah, the spare tire. The
I've
Marine.
always called it that too,
okay.
but not everybody's calls it that.
I
yeah,
forget.
the donut.
And so anyway, Arizona Department of Transportation vehicle pulled up and he tightened everything
Okay.
for me. And he said, you're going to have to turn around and go back to Gila Bend.
Well, for any
So
of
I
you
did that.
listeners who are feeling like,
Like-
I can't change a tire. I can't change a tire. I can't. I know how to press the button that starts the car, and that's about the extent of my knowledge. And then I have a AAA card.
Yeah.
Which is all, I mean, that's good. I mean, the one thing I will commend our great law enforcement people here in Arizona Highway Patrol. I mean, it is hot. And I mean, I've seen some amazing kindness from Highway Patrol with maybe a vehicle that had a flat tire
And
or
batteries dying.
dying, or even I saw this one, and the Highway Patrol truck was even sort of pushing the car a little bit to help him off the road, and I knew it was maybe an elderly person that just his car just died in the middle
I've
of the
done
street.
that. Or jump out and push, help people get it out of the way.
You got to commend the law enforcement here and the support they do when we have that.
So this actually does relate to sort of the way I've been thinking about the world, is that if you drop your wallet in an airport, or if you need help on the side of the road, or if you're stuck in a parking lot, I just think that we have, I think 90% plus of Americans who pick up that wallet look to return it to
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah.
I think people stop to help you on the side of the road. I think if you get stuck in snow in some of these states that aren't as blessed as Arizona, people help push you out of the snow. And then you see politics, and you see that some of these people would not help other people if they were drowning, basically. And it's just I think we need to be thinking a little bigger about some of the structural reforms that have just pitted Americans against each other and made this feel like such a life or death, high stakes situation where we really hate each other. And so, because, if we didn't talk about politics and we just talked about, Diamondbacks games or, other stuff, then I think 90% of people would get along. And so that's been one of the sad components of the last 4 years, is just the amount of hate that I've gotten to witness. I've witnessed a lot of good, but a lot of hate from Americans who have been so ginned up by politics and by the people who are in positions of power who pull on their emotional strings and get them for either so they donate or so that they go out and campaign, but just get them so emotionally revved up that it's almost dehumanized them.
Yeah, and it's okay.
Sad.
You don't have to agree with how I believe, and I think we've gotten to the point where, if I believe in one cause or another, but it's not in alignment with your causes, all of a sudden, that my belief is wrong and your belief is wrong, and it gets so polarized. It's okay to ask the question. It's okay to like you had already mentioned, hey, if you have a question, call my office. It's okay to call whoever's running if they're talking about border security and you're curious about, well, what are they doing? What are they doing now? What was your plan? It's okay to call the office of whoever's running and say, hey, what's their plan on border security? Because I'm really passionate about this. What's their plan on healthcare? Because I'm really passionate. It's okay to ask those questions.
Well, even the propositions. I was invited to a meeting last week, and I went to it. And it was a group of women that I belonged to, and it was an extended group of that. And I participated, and we went through the propositions and discussed, the differences, but there was no arguing, there was no ugliness, and it was actually a really pleasant evening.
Yeah.
And it was okay that we had differing opinions, but if you don't get involved and you don't ask the questions, then it's kind of like you can't be griping about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like even when you volunteer, if you're not out there helping clean up that roadway or whatever, you can't drive your car and complain, I'm going to call the city, whatever, and complain they need to clean this up and everything. Well, what are you doing? You know, are you involved?
Yeah. Well, so I bet that evening took a while because there's a lot of propositions up about.
Yeah. We had to,
Yeah.
we didn't get through everything,
you
but we
probably were
talked
there
some
for
highlights.
a while.
Couple hours.
Yeah.
And I commend the former principal that put this together. And she's originally from Nebraska, but she lives here in Arizona. And she thought it really important that, you know, she was very passionate to do that.
And for
have
your
some
Arizona
discussions.
listeners, this is another good point, is that we are going to have a lot on our ballot because we have a lot of propositions that have been referred directly to the voters, either through the state legislature or through the signature gathering process. So out here in the West, we love our direct democracy, and we're going to be asking Arizona voters to weigh in on everything from wage laws to abortion rights to how we should administer elections in the future. And so we are actually here in Maricopa County going to have a full 4 pages, meaning 1 page as front and back, and then a second page as front and back. And so you will get 2 ballots in your ballot packet when we send those out. And so just get ready for it. It's a long one this year.
You know, and it's so important to think of elections as not just electing an official, but it's also making decisions for your community, like those propositions.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to get information about those. I know that I guess your office has sent out even
Pamphlets
and information. Read those, read that, educate yourself. Don't just ignore it. Don't just vote yes or no. You know, and this is nationwide because there's lots of things that are going to be on that ballot that's very important to you directly.
Yeah.
So please take a look at it. If you have a question, call Yvette because she knows all about it. Great.
Yes.
But,
no, the one that stood out for
we do
me,
have an 800 number.
was the Proposition 135 in Arizona. And that is, it gives the governor the full, I'm not using the right terms, the full authority to deem if we should be like shut down during COVID, for example. Or do you want the governor to have all of that, or should it be the people?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was one that we kind of discussed a little bit. That was kind of interesting.
Why would that ever come up? Hopefully that never comes up again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's important because of political powers and things like that. I think it's important to
funding,
different things for school funding. There's some bonds going on. So
lots of stuff.
Thank you. This has been amazing. I really appreciate your time. Any final thoughts? I know we've talked about a lot of things.
Yeah.
So do you have any final thoughts that you'd want to tell our audience?
I got to put in a plug for democracy, just broadly speaking.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of Americans just think of democracy as our default setting and that we're always going to continue to have democracy. But that's a very new perspective, actually, because even in the history of this country, obviously, democracy is something that has only recently been afforded very broadly to all groups. And then in the history of the world, democracy is still just like a baby. And even now, there are many places that are not any form of democratic government. And so it doesn't just happen naturally. It's not the default setting. It does require the participation and the defense by our residents, our citizens. And I think that one of the places where it's most coming into question is here in Maricopa County, here in Arizona. So get involved, speak up, and say that continuing this democratic experiment is important in and of itself, not just because of it leads to a policy outcome you wanted or something like that, but because the process itself is important.
Well, that leads to this real quick. I put some names down.
Oh, good.
Like Martin Luther King.
Yes.
Cesar Chavez. And Mr. Richer.
Ooh, look at
That's
that.
Could
Exalted
be
Company.
like-
Yeah.
Wow,
Those
that's-
guys have some statues. Nobody's offered me a statue yet.
Give it to me.
All right,
No,
thank you.
I was thinking
Yes.
like at least a movie of the week.
Yeah,
Or, maybe the big screen.
Yeah,
You know.
I was just going to
that's
say,
awesome.
a sandwich, and like having a sandwich named after me at the local
There
shop
you-
or
well,
something like that.
we can arrange that, I bet.
We could probably arrange that. My family has some restaurants in North Carolina, though people would be like, well, what is this?
Yeah, it's
mean?
all right.
But
I'll
we
still
could-
take it.
we
I'll
could
take a
figure
picture.
it out.
Yeah.
You guys are too young, but do you remember the movie Norma Ray in the 70s? Sally Field
I
played
would
this
not remember
character.
that one.
North Carolina,
Oh.
cotton mill factory.
Okay.
And she stood up for,
I do remember that.
healthcare
she's an
things,
Oscar
advocacy.
winner.
Yes, for that. And so here you are. I'm just saying that
I love it. I'm not gonna
you've
turn that
done
down.
a lot
Thank you.
of good.
Thank
and
you.
so congratulations on that. And thank you for being our county recorder.
Thank you so
because-
much. Yeah, people
Yeah.
probably don't say thank you enough for being, going and taking the heat and standing up for what you believe is really important to us and to business owners. And it really resonates with me.
Well, I appreciate that.
Resonates.
Resonates.
No
I
cheat.
thought you were doing that on purpose. yeah.
Well, and you have all the generations behind you
Yeah.
that brought you to where you are now.
Yep.
And then all the future generations that are looking up to you, your children and their children. So you've done great work.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks
The
for
Native
having
Edge.
me.
The Native Edge is brought to you by the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so any support that you can give us not only helps us do the great work throughout the United States and into Canada as well. So please look at our website at www.ncaIED.org. You can find out all about our programs, all about registration for the Reservation Economic Summit, all about our Native Edge, everything you could possibly
Check out our
imagine.
YouTube channel.
Our YouTube channel. We're on LinkedIn. We're on X. We're on every possible format there is. 40 Under 40 is our program where we recognize 40 individuals under 40 and the great work that they've done in Indian country. Nominations are open now. They will go through the end of...
Do it today. Why wait?
Do it
the
today.
end of October. Stephen, thank you so much for being a great guest. We will see you next time and hear you next time on The Native Edge.